Hi, my name is Doming Glenn Padulip and I am here to report to you one of the methods of educational research, and that is the design-based research, also known as DBR. The design-based research, specifically in conceptualizing an academic article. It is said that the process of learning will not stay the same as it is because the learners are developing and growing, and so the system needs to also develop and grow to meet the needs of the learners. That is why, according to Barab and Squire in 2004, this design-based research is a good approach to developing and studying theory-driven pedagogical interventions in situ. Another way of defining the design-based research is that it is a systematic methodology which aims to improve educational practices through analysis, design, development, and implementation. But it is also a flexible methodology because the researcher could make an intervention along the process of researching in order to provide a good and reasonable refined solution. We have 6 characteristics of the design-based research. Number 1 of which is that it is iterative, in that research takes place through repeated cycles of design, implementation, analysis, and revision. Here, the researcher could repeat again and again the process if the main goal of the researcher is to provide a refined solution to the problem. The second characteristic is that it is a process-focused because it seeks to understand both the learning process and the impact of design interventions on that learning. It is also an interventionist because it involves designed learning environments that are systematically investigated to test the expected relationship between the aspects of the design on learning with the intent to advance educational theory and practice. The next characteristic is it is a collaborative approach because in that knowledge about teaching and learning are constructed through researcher-practitioner partnerships. For example, a researcher and a teacher. It is also utility-oriented in that it aims to produce usable knowledge for educational innovation by explaining how designs function in authentic settings. And lastly, it is a theory-driven in that theoretical assumptions which guide the design of interventions are tested with the intention of advancing educational theory through the cyclic process that is design, implementation, analysis, and then redesign of learning and teaching activities and artifacts. The relevance of using design-based research, one of which is that design-based researchers are committed to the idea that learning and teaching are the result of complex social interactions shaped by the interplay of various contextual variables. This means that the social interactions between the learner and the teacher is shaped by the interplay of various contextual variables such as different contexts of education, theories, and principles. Number 2 is that design-based researchers use multiple forms of data such as artifacts and records of conversations to construct knowledge about phenomena under study. And lastly, the DBR is not only used to find out what happens, but to gain an understanding of how and why things happen as they do. Now, what do you think would be the challenge in using design-based research? According to Reeves in 2000, it typically takes years to generate useful results. He suggested 5 years or more. However, the approach of progressive refinement requires design researchers to put a first version of the design into the world to see how it works, in order to revise the design until the bugs are worked out. That is according to Collins et al. 2004. So this is an illustration of the design-based research, or how this design-based research works. We have 4 boxes. The first step in using DBR method is analyzing of practical problems by the researchers and practitioners in collaboration. It could be the researcher and a teacher. Here, the researchers analyze the data and sources related to the practical problem. The next step is that after analyzing the problem, the researcher will develop solutions informed by existing design principles and technological interventions. And after analyzing the problem and developing solutions informed by existing design principles, the third step is that the testing and refinement of solution are practiced. It is the purpose of testing and refinement, that is to evaluate how much the given solution is effective for the current problem. And along the research, if the given solution is effective in solving a problem, we are now in the step 4. It is the last step, and this is the implementation of the solution of the problem. The reflection to produce design principles and enhance solution implementation. But how this differ from action research? So this is an illustration of a simple comparison with action research. We have the purpose of action research and the purpose of the design-based research. Under the purpose of action research, that is to provide a solution to an educator's problem in their own school or organization. But for the DBR, it is to provide solutions to real educational challenges. Another purpose of action research is that to improve practice or understand issues. While the purpose of DBR is to refine the design of innovative learning interventions and contribute to a body of design theory. As you can see, the arrows show a repeated cycle because one of the characteristics of DBR is that it is iterative, in which the process can be repeated again and again. And that's what makes the DBR a flexible methodology.
Indeed, research is fun. Now let us proceed to our second topic, which is the microgenetic research method. The process of change represents a main central issue for the study of development. Basic and applied researchers in developmental science have aimed their research work at answering several key questions related to the problem of change. How does change occur? What mechanisms produce change? What conditions are likely to promote the emergence of change in development? Another related question concerns the stability versus instability of new behavioral patterns that emerge as a consequence of an intervention. What are the relationships between variability and stability in developmental processes? Does the emergence of new behavioral patterns tend to suppress the old patterns or to coexist with them? The main methodological difficulty in studying developmental change processes is that traditional research designs do not involve a direct observation of change while it is occurring. One promising approach to studying change processes and individual differences in development is offered by microgenetic designs, as these are specifically aimed to allow the researcher to closely observe processes of change instead of products. As the name implies, microgenetic designs are focused on the microgenesis of development, that is, on the moment-by-moment change observed within a short period of time for an elevated number of sessions. Now, let's proceed to the key characteristics of microgenetic research method. First, individuals are observed through a period of developmental change. That is, the changing individual is the fundamental unit of analysis. Second, observations are conducted before, during, and after a period during which the rapid change in a particular domain occurs. That is, observation is not simply conducted before and after the change take place. Third, there is an elevated density of observations within the transition period. That is, observations are conducted at time intervals that are considerably shorter than the time intervals required for the developmental change to occur. For instance, if a developmental change takes place over several months, then observations should be conducted weekly or even more frequently. Lastly, observed behaviors are intensively analyzed, both qualitatively and quantitatively, with the goal of identifying the processes that give rise to the developmental change. Though the microgenetic research method can be the most reliable research method in studying change processes, the method can be time-consuming, since it checks thoroughly on different variables and the things happening in the study from time to time. This can also be expensive. Because it considers critical analysis and observations, researchers may not find it.
Good morning, everyone. Today we'll be going to discuss to you about the topics, particularly the design-based research in the microgenetic method. First is the design-based research. Design-based research is a collection of methodological principles and approaches to studying innovative educational interventions in complex real-world settings, bridges the theory and practice gap. DBR was developed by educators as a response to the gap between basic and applied research practices and to the lack of meaningful impact of educational research in educational systems. Now, what makes DBR different from others is that it has its roots in educational technology research and is also related to design research, approaches in engineering, computer science, and architecture. And apart from other forms of educational research is the commitment of researchers to develop solutions to educational problems in collaboration with practitioners. So practitioners, these are the people who studies or who works on their profession. For example, teachers. It means that researchers and teachers collaboratively design research informed learning experiences for students and then study the impact of these designs on learning, understanding complex problem of practice, and on the collaborative design, development, implementation, and evaluation of research-informed innovations in authentic learning context. So, all in all, DBR, the design-based research, is oriented towards sustained educational innovation and studies the interactions between learners, content criteria, and context. And also researchers acknowledge that teachers matter, learners matter, and context matter. So in here in DBR, collaboration is a must. While on the other hand, about the design microgenetic method, progress in understanding cognitive developmental change mechanisms requires both methods that yield data about particular changes. So microgenetic method is a method that, or approach that can yield such data. So there are three key properties that define microgenetic approach. First, observation span the entire period from the beginning of the change to the time at which it reaches a relatively stable state. Second, the density of observations is high relative to the rate of change of the phenomenon. Third, observed behavior is subjected to intensive trial-by-trial analysis with the goal of inferring processes that give rise to both qualitative and quantitative aspects of change, and indicate the conditions under which changes occur, and yield otherwise unobtainable information about short-lived transition strategies. And so all in all, it can yield conclusive data about strategies that are not used as well as about ones that are. They can convey a sense of process as well as products of social interactions. These types of data should contribute to improve future theorizing about change mechanism. So just by hearing everything I said, the microgenetic method requires time and effort. What I'm saying is that the cost in time and effort of such studies is often high, but the value of the information about change can more than just justify the cost. So that would be all. Thank you.